My son, whom I raised alone, stood in front of me with a cold smile, demanding the keys to the house I had been building all my life. I gave him a car, hoping for reconciliation, but he threw it away. That's not enough, Dad. We need your house. I refused. A week later, he invited me to a family meeting. I arrived, and there were lawyers waiting with a ready-made will to take everything away. Their cold stares cut like knives, but I smiled and said, "It's funny, I brought someone too." The door opened and a person entered the room whose presence made their faces turn white. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. Rain tapped the windows of my dining room, a steady drum that matched the ache in my chest. The old oak table, scarred from years of family dinners, stood between me and my son, Tom, who lounged in a chair with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. His wife, Emily, sat beside him, her posture stiff, her smile as sharp as a blade. I clutched the keys to the car I'd bought for him, their metal edges biting into my palm. This was my olive branch, my hope to mend what had frayed between us. The wrapping paper from the gift lay torn on the table, its bright red crinkled like a discarded dream. "Tom," I said, my voice quieter than I meant, "I thought you'd like it. It's reliable, paid off. For you and Emily." I slid the keys across the table. They glinted under the chandelier's dim light, a beacon of my good intentions. Tom glanced at the keys, then at Emily. Her lips twitched, a flicker of disdain. "That's sweet, Frank," she said, her voice syrupy, "but it's not what we need." She leaned forward, her manicured nails tapping the table. "You're alone in this big house. It's too much for you. We were thinking you could sign it over to us." My breath caught. The room seemed to shrink, the walls pressing in. "The house?" I repeated, as if saying it aloud would make it less real. The house I'd built in the 80s, every nail driven with love for my late wife, Linda, and our dreams of a family. The house where Tom learned to walk, where Linda's laughter once echoed. "This is my home," I said, my throat tight. "It's all I have." Tom shifted, his eyes sliding away. "Come on, Dad. It's not about you. It's about family. We deserve it, don't we? After everything?" His tone was soft, but it carried a barb, a reminder of the years he claimed I'd failed him. The years after Linda died, when I worked nights to keep us afloat, when I thought love was enough. I looked at him, searching for the boy who'd once drawn pictures of this house, crayon roofs and smiling stick figures. That boy was gone. In his place was a man whose jaw tightened with impatience, whose hands fidgeted like they were itching for something to take. Emily pushed a stack of papers toward me, the edges crisp and official. "We had a lawyer draw this up," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "It's simple. You sign, we take care of everything. You'd be free, Frank. No burden." The word burden landed like a slap. My fingers tightened around the edge of the table, the wood cool under my skin. I wanted to scream, to throw the papers in their faces, but my eyes caught the photo on the shelf behind them, Linda, smiling in her summer dress, her hair catching the sunlight. She'd believed in Tom, even when he lied, even when he broke her heart. I'd promised her I'd keep us together. "Get out," I said, my voice low, trembling with a rage I hadn't felt in years. "Take your papers and go." Tom stood, his chair scraping the floor. Emily's smile faltered, but she gathered the papers with a flick of her wrist. "You're making a mistake, Frank," she said, her eyes narrowing. "We'll talk again." They left, the door slamming behind them. The house fell silent, save for the rain. I stood, my legs unsteady, and crossed to the shelf. Linda's photo stared back at me, her eyes gentle but firm. "I tried, love," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I tried." The keys lay untouched on the table, a symbol of my failure. I sank into a chair, the weight of their words pressing down on me. My home, my life, they wanted it all. But as I stared at Linda's face, her words from years ago surfaced, sharp and clear, "Don't let Tom rule you, Frank." I touched the frame, my fingers tracing her smile. The rain grew heavier outside, blurring the world beyond the windows, and I knew I couldn't let this go. Not yet. The rain had softened to a whisper by the time I stepped back inside, my shoes leaving wet prints on the hardwood. The dining room felt too large, too empty, the echoes of Tom and Emily's voices lingering like ghosts. I wandered into the living room, my body heavy, and sank into the old armchair that still smelled faintly of Linda's lavender perfume. In my hands, I held her favorite mug, its rim chipped, its daisy pattern faded from years of use. It was a small thing, but it anchored me, a tether to the life we'd built. The lamp cast a warm glow, but it couldn't chase away the chill in my bones. I stared at the mug, my thumb tracing the crack along its edge. Linda had loved this mug, had sipped her tea from it every morning while humming tunes from the radio. I could still see her in this room, her laughter filling the spaces where silence now reigned. "Why didn't I listen to you?" I thought, my chest tightening. She'd warned me to be firmer with Tom, to stop excusing his lies, but I'd been too soft, too desperate to keep him close after she was gone. My eyes drifted to the bookshelf, its shelves sagging under the weight of old novels and photo albums. I stood, the mug still in my hand, and pulled out a box of letters Linda had written me before we married. The paper was brittle, the ink faded, but her words leapt off the page: "Be strong, Frank. For us." I sank back into the chair, the letter trembling in my hands. Tears blurred the words, and I let them fall, each one a confession of my failures. Had I been too weak? Had I turned Tom into this man who saw me as an obstacle, not a father? The house creaked, settling under the weight of the storm. I remembered a day long ago when Tom was 10, and we'd baked cookies in the kitchen. Linda had scolded him for sneaking dough, but her eyes sparkled with love. I'd laughed, ruffling his hair, believing we'd always be that family. Now, the memory felt like a blade, twisting deeper with every detail: the smell of vanilla, the warmth of the oven, the way Tom's giggles filled the room. Where had that boy gone? My phone buzzed on the side table, snapping me back. The screen showed a missed call, the number unfamiliar. My stomach twisted. Was it Tom, or worse, someone he'd sent? I set the mug down, its clink against the table loud in the quiet. The letter lay open in my lap, Linda's words a quiet command. I stood, my joints protesting, and paced to the window. The rain had stopped, leaving the world outside slick and dark, a mirror to my thoughts. I couldn't keep living like this, trapped in guilt and grief. Tom's words, "We deserve it," echoed in my mind, but they were drowned out by a spark of anger, small but growing. I wasn't ready to give up. Not the house, not my life, not the promises I'd made to Linda. I walked to the kitchen, the floorboards groaning under my steps, and filled the kettle. As it hissed, I caught my reflection in the window: an old man, yes, but not broken. Not yet. The steam rose, curling like a question mark, and I gripped the counter, my knuckles whitening. "I won't let him take everything," I said aloud, the words steady despite the tremor in my hands. Linda's mug sat on the counter, a silent witness. Outside, the night stretched on, vast and unyielding, but for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of resolve. I needed help, someone who'd stand by me. Jack's face came to mind, his gruff voice a lifeline. Tomorrow, I'd find him. Tomorrow, I'd start fighting back. The cold bit at my knuckles as I pushed open the door to Murphy's bar, the familiar scent of whiskey and damp wool greeting me like an old friend. The place was a relic, its wooden bar scratched and sticky, the jukebox humming a Springsteen tune from the 70s. Jack sat at the far end, his broad shoulders hunched over a glass, his gray sideburns catching the dim light. He spotted me and raised a hand, his grin as rough as the bar itself. I forced a smile, my legs heavy from the weight of the day. But something in his nod steadied me. "Frank, you look like hell," Jack said as I slid onto the stool beside him. His voice was gravelly, warm despite the jab. He pushed a glass of whiskey my way, the amber liquid sloshing against the sides. "What's the kid done now?" I wrapped my fingers around the glass, its chill grounding me. The bar was quiet, save for the clink of glasses and the low murmur of a couple in the corner. I took a sip, the burn sharp and familiar, and let the words spill out. "Tom wants the house," I said, my voice low. "Came with Emily, papers and all. They think I'm done, Jack. That I'll just roll over." Jack's eyes narrowed, his hand tightening around his own glass. Ungrateful little, he muttered, catching himself. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. Heard something, Frank. Tom was seen downtown, talking to a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, some shark who specializes in estate fights. He paused, watching my face. They're not playing nice. My heart stuttered, a cold dread pooling in my gut. I stared into my glass, the whiskey's surface trembling with my pulse. A lawyer. Papers. It was worse than I'd thought. I saw Tom smirk again, Emily's calculating eyes, the way they'd stood in my dining room like they already owned it. But Jack's words lit something else in me, a spark, small but fierce, that pushed back against the fear. You're stronger than they think, Jack said, his voice cutting through my thoughts. He clapped a hand on my shoulder, the weight of it solid, real. Remember when Linda passed? You carried on, Frank. For Tom, for her. You've got that steel in you still. I looked at him, his face lined with years of loyalty. I remembered him at Linda's funeral, his jaw tight as he helped carry her coffin, his eyes wet but unyielding. He'd been there when I couldn't stand, and he was here now. I took another sip, the whiskey steadying my hands. I don't know if I can fight this, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. But I have to try. Jack grinned, a glint of mischief in his eyes. That's the Frank I know. Let me dig into this lawyer business. I still got contacts. He leaned back, his voice lighter. And don't let that kid scare you. He's all bark, no bite. I nodded, the spark in my chest growing. The bar felt warmer now, the jukebox's melody a quiet promise. I thought of Linda, her photo on my shelf, her words in my heart. I wouldn't let Tom erase what we'd built. Not without a fight. I drained my glass and stood, the cold air outside calling me. Jack raised his glass in a silent toast as I stepped into the night. The rain had stopped, the sky clear, stars piercing the dark like tiny beacons. I shoved my hands in my pockets, my breath clouding in the chill. I'm not done yet, I murmured, the words of vow to myself, to Linda, to the house that held our lives. The street stretched ahead, leading me home, and with every step, I felt the weight of fear lift, replaced by something harder, something ready to fight. The knock at the door came sharp, like a hammer on my nerves. I stood in the kitchen, the scent of brewing coffee thick in the air, my hands still damp from washing dishes. Outside, the autumn day was gray, leaves tumbling across the lawn like scattered thoughts. I wiped my hands on a towel, my heart thudding, and opened the door. Tom stood there, his coat flecked with rain, his eyes avoiding mine. Emily was beside him, her smile tight, her heels clicking as she stepped inside without asking. They brought the chill with them, and I felt the warmth of my home drain away. Frank, we need to talk, Emily said, her voice smooth but edged, like a knife wrapped in silk. She brushed past me, her perfume sharp, and set her purse on the checkered tablecloth. Tom followed, his shoulders hunched, saying nothing. I closed the door, the click loud in the quiet, and gestured to the chairs. The kitchen, with its cracked tiles and faded curtains, felt smaller with them in it, as if they were already claiming the space. Emily pulled a glossy brochure from her purse and slid it across the table. Its cover showed smiling seniors playing chess, the words Golden Years Retirement Home in bold. My stomach twisted. We've been thinking about you, Frank, she said, her eyes locked on mine. This place is perfect. Cozy, safe, full of people your age. You'd be free from all this. She waved a hand, dismissing the house I'd built with my own hands. I stared at the brochure, its colors too bright, its promises hollow. The coffee pot hissed, steam curling like a warning. You want me to leave my home, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. To go to some facility? The word tasted bitter, like ash. Tom shifted in his chair, his fingers twisting the cuff of his sleeve. It's for your own good, Dad, he mumbled, his voice barely audible. He wouldn't look at me. His silence heard more than Emily's words, a betrayal carved in the lines of his averted face. I remembered him at 10, grease on his cheeks as we fixed his bike in this very kitchen, his laughter bright as sunlight. That boy was gone, replaced by this stranger who let his wife speak for him. Emily leaned forward, her earrings glinting. Frank,
Be reasonable. This house is too much for you. It's holding you back. And us.
Her voice softened, but it was a performance, a mask of care.
We've found a buyer.
You sign the papers, move to golden years, and everyone wins. She tapped the brochure, her nails sharp against the paper. My hands clenched, the towel still in my grip. I saw Linda in my mind, dancing in this kitchen, her apron dusted with flour as she teased me about my 2 left feet. This house was her, was us, was every sacrifice I'd made, nights working overtime, dreams of travel set aside to pay for Tom's college.
They wanted to erase it all.
No, I said, my voice low, hard.
I'm not leaving. This is my home. Emily's smile faltered, a crack in her composure.
Frank, don't make this difficult, she said, her tone sharpening.
There are legal steps we can take. You know that.
She stood, smoothing her skirt, and Tom rose too, his eyes still on the floor. They moved to the door, Emily's heels echoing like gunfire. Think it over, she called over her shoulder, leaving the brochure behind like a taunt. The door shut, and the house settled into silence.
I stood by the window, watching their car vanish into the rain. The brochure lay on the table, its edges curling in the damp air.
My chest burned, a mix of pain and fury, but something else stirred too, a quiet strength, like an ember catching flame. I picked up the brochure, my fingers crushing it into a tight ball. I won't let you win, I whispered, the words of promise to myself, to Linda, to the life we'd built. Outside, the rain fell harder, but I felt a shift inside me, a resolve to fight.
I needed Jack. I needed a plan. The crumpled brochure sat on my desk, a silent accusation in the dim light of my study.
Night had fallen, the house cloaked in darkness, the only sound the soft patter of rain against the windows. I leaned back in my chair, its leather creaking, and stared at the old rotary phone, its yellowed plastic a relic from better days. My hands shook, not from cold but from the weight of what I was about to do. The walls of the study, lined with sagging shelves and faded blueprints, seemed to watch me, waiting for my next move.
I couldn't wait any longer.
I pulled open the desk drawer, the wood scraping, and lifted out a folder thick with papers, my will, the deed to the house, mortgage records. The pages smelled of dust and time, each one a piece of the life I'd built with Linda. I set the folder down, my fingers lingering on its worn edges.
What if Tom hated me for this? What if fighting made the rift between us permanent? The questions gnawed me, but Emily's voice, legal steps echoed louder, a threat I couldn't ignore.
My mind drifted to Linda, to the hospital room where I'd last held her hand. The air had smelled of antiseptic, her breathing faint, her fingers fragile in mine. Be strong, Frank, she'd whispered, her eyes fierce despite the pain. I'd promised her I would, for Tom, for us. But I'd faltered, letting Tom drift away, letting Emily's influence take hold.
No more.
I picked up the phone, the dial tone a low hum, and called Jack.
Frank, it's late, Jack's voice crackled through. Gruff but warm. You okay? I swallowed, my throat tight. They want me out, Jack.
Emily, Tom, they're pushing for a retirement home.
I need to protect the house. Can you look into it? Legally, I mean.
The words felt heavy, each one a step toward a fight I wasn't sure I could win. Jack paused, the silence heavy.
They're playing dirty, huh?
All right, I'll call some old contacts, see what we can do.
You're not alone, Frank.
We'll figure this out. His voice was steady, a lifeline in the dark.
I exhaled, my shoulders easing. Thanks, Jack. I don't know what I'd do without you.
My voice cracked, but I didn't care. The study felt less oppressive now, the shadows softer.
Jack's promise was a spark, small but enough to keep me going.
I hung up, the receiver clicking into place. The folder lay open, its pages a map of my past and my fight ahead. I thought of Linda again, her laughter in this house, her strength in me. I'm trying, love, I whispered, my voice barely audible. The rain outside grew louder, a steady rhythm, but it didn't drown out the resolve building in my chest. I closed the folder, my hand firm, and switched off the lamp.
Darkness swallowed the room, but it didn't scare me. Not anymore. I stood, the floorboards creaking under my weight, and moved to the window. The glass was cold against my palm, the world beyond blurred by rain. "I've started," I said to the night, to Linda, to myself. The words felt like a vow, a line drawn in the sand. Whatever Tom and Emily were planning, I'd be ready. I had to be. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked, counting down to the fight I couldn't avoid. Morning light crept through the cracked blinds, painting the hallway in pale streaks. I shuffled to the front door, my slippers scuffing the cold hardwood, my head still heavy from a restless night. The mailbox had spilled its contents onto the entry table: bills, flyers, and one crisp envelope that stood out like a warning. Its weight was wrong, too heavy for junk mail, the address typed in stark black ink. My fingers hesitated, then tore it open, the sound sharp in the quiet house. The letter inside was formal, the paper stiff, the words a punch to the gut. "Dear Mr. Collins," it began, "we represent Thomas and Emily Collins in a matter concerning your estate." My eyes skimmed the lines, each one tighter, colder. They were challenging my will, claiming I was unfit to manage my own affairs. If I didn't transfer the house, they'd take it to court. Emily's name was scrawled at the bottom, her signature bold, a taunt. The air grew thin, my chest tight. I gripped the table, the wood smooth under my knuckles, and read it again, hoping I'd misunderstood. I hadn't. The letter was a weapon, its words precise, designed to cut. I saw Emily's face, her calculated smile, her voice dripping with fake concern. And Tom, where was he in this? Hiding behind her, as always. I remembered their wedding, Emily's first dinner in my home. She'd surveyed the rooms like a buyer, her lips curling at the worn furniture, while Tom sat silent, his eyes on his plate. She'd changed him, twisted him into this man who'd sell his father's life for a profit. My gaze caught the cracked mirror on the wall, my reflection fragmented, gray hair, deep lines, but eyes that burned. The letter trembled in my hand, its edges crumpling. "You won't take my home," I said, my voice low, fierce. The words echoed in the empty hallway, a challenge to Emily, to the lawyer, to the fear clawing at me. I thought of Linda, her photo in the dining room, her strength in every brick of this house. I wouldn't let them erase her, erase us. I moved to the study, the letter still in my grip, and yanked open the desk drawer. Papers spilled out, old letters, receipts, anything that might prove my case. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. Emily wanted a fight? I'd give her one. I'd record their threats, dig up proof of their greed, anything to show a judge who they really were. The thought of court scared me, but the thought of losing everything scared me more. The hallway clock ticked, its rhythm steady, a reminder of time slipping away. I sat at the desk, the letter beside me, and began sorting documents. Each page was a piece of my life, a reason to keep going. My fingers paused on a photo tucked between the papers: Linda and me, young, laughing in the backyard. Her smile steadied me, her memory a fire in my veins. "I'm ready," I said, my voice stronger now, the words a promise to her, to myself. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, its light faint but growing. I stood, the letter in one hand, the photo in the other, and felt the weight of the fight ahead. Emily thought she'd won, but she didn't know me, not really. I needed help, someone to stand with me. The thought of Mary, the neighbor who'd always offered a kind word, flickered in my mind. Maybe she'd seen something, heard something. I stepped toward the door, the floorboards creaking, my resolve a quiet storm building inside me. The wind tugged at my coat as I walked the short distance to Mary's cafe, the crumpled Sarah napkin from her place still tucked in my pocket. The letter from Emily's lawyer weighed heavy in my mind, its words like thorns I couldn't shake. The suburban street was quiet, fallen leaves skittering across the pavement, their rustle a faint echo of my own unease. Mary's cafe glowed ahead, its windows warm against the gray autumn day, promising a moment of refuge. I pushed open the door, the bell jingling, and the scent of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls wrapped around me like a blanket. Mary stood behind the counter, her apron dusted with flour, her smile creasing the lines around her eyes. "Frank, you're a sight for sore eyes," she called, wiping her hands on a towel. "You look like you've been carrying the world. Sit, I'll get you some coffee." Her voice was soft,
but there was a knowing edge to it, like she could see the storm brewing in me. I slid into a booth, the wooden table sticky with varnish, the air humming with the soft croon of a radio playing old jazz. The cafe was nearly empty, just a couple of regulars nursing mugs at the counter. I stared at the table, tracing a crack in the wood, my thoughts tangled. Mary set a steaming mug in front of me, its heat seeping into my palms as I wrapped my hands around it. "You're not yourself, Frank," she said, sliding into the seat across from me.
What's eating you? And don't say it's nothing, I've known you too long for that.
Her eyes, warm but sharp, held mine, and I felt a pang of gratitude for her stubborn care. I hesitated, the weight of Tom's betrayal too raw to share. But Mary's kindness, her quiet insistence, loosened something in me.
"Family trouble," I said, my voice low.
"Tom, he's not the boy I raised.
He's after the house, Mary. Him and his wife."
The words tasted bitter, but saying them aloud eased the ache, if only a little. Mary leaned back, her lips pursing. "That boy always had a spark, but Emily's got him twisted," she said, shaking her head. She paused, then leaned closer, her voice dropping. "You know, I saw Tom a few days back, downtown near the old bank. He was with some fella in a fancy suit, looked like a lawyer. Had a sly look about him, like he was selling something nobody should buy." Her words hit like a spark in dry grass, igniting a mix of hope and dread in my chest. I tightened my grip on the mug, the coffee steam curling like a question.
"A lawyer?" I repeated, my mind racing. Emily's letter had mentioned legal action, and now this.
The pieces were falling together, but the picture was still blurry.
"Did you catch anything else?
Where they were headed?" My voice was steady, but my pulse wasn't. Mary shrugged, her fingers fidgeting with a napkin.
"Just saw them go into that office building on Maple. Didn't think much of it till now."
She scribbled Maple Street on a napkin and slid it across the table.
"You be careful, Frank.
Tom's not himself, but you're stronger than you think." Her smile was small, but it carried a warmth that steadied me.
I nodded, slipping the napkin into my pocket.
The coffee was bitter on my tongue, but it grounded me, a reminder of the world beyond my fight. I thought of Linda, how she'd loved Mary's pies, how she'd drag me here on Sundays for a slice of apple and a laugh. Mary's cafe was a piece of that life, a thread tying me to her.
"Thanks, Mary," I said, my voice thick. "Means more than you know."
I stood, the chair scraping softly, and stepped outside. The wind was sharper now, carrying the scent of wet earth. I walked home, the napkin a quiet weight in my pocket, my thoughts on Linda. She'd have been proud, I told myself, her strength of fire I could still feel. The sky was heavy with clouds, but I felt lighter, like I'd found a foothold in the storm.
Maple Street.
A lawyer. I had something to work with now, and I wasn't alone. The house was dark when I got home, the only light a faint glow from the street lamp spilling through the blinds. I stood in the hallway, Mary's napkin still in my pocket, its scribbled words a small spark in the fog of my thoughts. The air smelled of old wood and dust, the silence heavy with the weight of the day. I didn't want to sit, didn't want to think, but my feet carried me to the study, to the desk where I'd left my fight half-formed. The folder of documents waited, but something else called me, a box tucked under the shelf, its edges worn, its contents a bridge to a life I'd lost. I knelt, the floorboards creaking, and pulled the box free. Inside were Linda's letters, their paper yellowed, her handwriting a delicate curl that still stole my breath. I lifted one, the faint scent of lavender clinging to it, and sank into the chair. The lamp's light was dim, casting shadows that danced across the walls, mirroring the ache in my chest. I unfolded the letter, its words a whisper from a time when the world felt whole. "Frank, be strong, for us. Don't let the world break you." Her voice filled the room, soft but unyielding, and my eyes burned. I saw her then, clear as day, standing by Lake Michigan, her hair wild in the wind, her laughter bright as the waves. We'd been young, broke, but happy, running through a summer rain to find shelter under a pier. She'd kissed me, her lips cold but her eyes warm, promising we'd build something lasting. This house was that promise, every brick laid with her dreams. I'd failed her, letting Tom slip away, letting Emily's greed creep in. The letter trembled in my hands, my tears smudging the ink. Another memory surfaced, sharper, crueler. The hospital, its sterile air choking me as I sat by Linda's bed. Her hand was frail, her skin paper thin, but her eyes held a fire that refused to fade. "Protect our home, Frank," she'd said, her voice a thread.
For Tom, for you.
I'd nodded, my throat too tight for words, but I hadn't understood then what she meant. I'd thought love meant giving everything, even at my own expense. Now, with Tom's betrayal cutting deep, I saw my mistake. I pressed the letter to my chest, my heart pounding against it, as if I could hold her close one more time. The box sat open, a treasure chest of pain and purpose. I'd lived for others, Linda, Tom, until there was nothing left of me. But Linda's words were a call, a reminder that I had to fight, not just for the house, but for myself. I couldn't betray her again. My gaze fell to the folder on the desk, its papers a map of the battle ahead.
I wasn't done yet.
I folded the letter, my fingers steady now, and set it on the desk, a sentinel watching over me. The others went back in the box, but this one stayed, a piece of her I'd carry into the fight. The rain outside was soft, a gentle patter that felt like her touch, urging me on. I stood, the chair creaking, and left the study, my steps firm. "I'll do this for you," I whispered, the words a vow to her, to the life we'd dreamed. The hallway stretched before me, leading to the next step, to Jack, to the plan that was taking shape in the shadows of my resolve. Jack's office smelled of coffee and old books, a cluttered sanctuary of papers and faded certificates on the walls. I sat across from him, the leather chair squeaking under my weight, my hands clasped around a pen that felt like a lifeline. Outside, the evening sky burned red, its glow seeping through the window, painting the room in hues of fire. Jack leaned over his desk, his glasses slipping down his nose, his fingers flipping through a stack of documents. "We've got options, Frank," he said, his voice gruff but steady.
"But it's gonna be a fight." I nodded, my throat tight.
Linda's letter was still in my mind, her words a drumbeat driving me forward. The pen in my hand was heavy, its ink a promise of the battle ahead.
"What can we do?"
I asked, my voice quieter than I meant.
"Emily's lawyer is pushing hard. That letter, they're saying I'm not fit to handle my own affairs."
The word stung, a reminder of how far Tom had fallen, how deep Emily's claws had sunk.
Jack snorted, tossing a paper aside. "They're bluffing, mostly. Trying to scare you into signing. But we can play smarter."
He pulled out a file, its edges frayed, and tapped it. "Your will's solid, but we could transfer the house to a trust.
Makes it harder for them to contest.
Or we dig into their finances, bet Emily's got debts driving this." His eyes met mine, a glint of mischief in them.
"You ready to get your hands dirty, Frank?"
I thought of Tom, not the man he'd become, but the boy he was hiding behind my leg at school, begging me not to fight with his teacher. His eyes had been wide, scared, and I'd backed down, always wanting to shield him. Now, that boy was gone, replaced by someone who'd let Emily wield him like a weapon. My chest ached at the thought, but I couldn't let it stop me. "I'm ready," I said, my voice firm.
"But Jack, what if this breaks him? What if Tom hates me forever?"
Jack leaned back, his chair groaning.
"You're not the one breaking him, Frank.
He's made his choices.
You're just protecting what's yours."
He paused, his voice softening.
"Linda would have kicked your butt for doubting yourself. You're doing this for her, right?"
I smiled, a small, pained thing.
Linda's face flashed in my mind, her eyes fierce even in memory.
The pen in my hand felt like her hand in mine, guiding me.
"Yeah," I said.
"For her.
For me."
I signed the paper Jack slid over, a preliminary step to set the trust in motion. The scratch of the pen was loud, a declaration in the quiet room. Jack clapped my shoulder, his grip solid.
"We'll get through this, old man. I'm with you."
He stood, pouring coffee from a dented pot, the steam curling like a vow. I took the mug, its warmth steadying me, and glanced at the papers, our plan, still forming, but real. I thought of Tom, of the chance I might still save him, but the house came first.
It had to.
I left the office, the red sky fading to dusk, the air cool against my face. My steps were heavy, but my heart was lighter, the pen still in my pocket, a symbol of the fight I'd chosen. Tom's face lingered in my thoughts, his boyhood smile clashing with the man he'd become. Maybe there was still a way to reach him, to pull him back. The streetlights flickered on, guiding me home, and I felt the storm approaching, but I wasn't afraid. Not yet. The fire crackled in the living room, its glow casting shadows that danced across the worn carpet. I sat on the old couch, its springs creaking under me, my hands folded as I stared at Linda's photograph on the coffee table. Her smile, frozen in time, held a quiet strength that steadied my racing thoughts. The plan with Jack was set, but my heart still ached for Tom, for the boy I'd lost somewhere along the way. The wind howled outside, rattling the open window, and then came the knock, sharp, hesitant, like a question that didn't want an answer. I stood, my joints stiff, and opened the door. Tom stood there, his coat damp from the evening drizzle, his face pale under the porch light. His eyes darted, avoiding mine, and his hands fidgeted with the hem of his jacket. "Dad," he said, his voice low, almost swallowed by the wind. "Can we talk?" He looked smaller somehow, not the man who'd demanded my home, but a shadow of him, frayed and uncertain. I stepped aside, letting him in, the cold air trailing behind him like an uninvited guest. The living room felt smaller with him in it, the air thick with unspoken words. He sat on the edge of a chair, his knees bouncing, and pulled a folded stack of papers from his pocket. The sight of them twisted my gut, more demands, more threats. "Dad," he started, his voice cracking, "you don't have to make this hard. Just sign these, and it's done. No lawyers, no fights." He slid the papers across the table. Their edges crisp, official, a stark contrast to the warmth of the fire. I didn't touch them. My eyes flicked to Linda's photo, her gaze anchoring me. I saw Tom at 8, his hands sticky with sap as we built a birdhouse in the backyard, his laughter bright under the summer sun. That boy had trusted me, loved me. This man, with his trembling hands and averted eyes, was a stranger, shaped by Emily's ambition. "Tom," I said, my voice steady, "you don't have to do this. You can walk away. Be your own man." He flinched, his fingers twisting the papers. "It's not that simple," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "We need this, Dad. Emily, we're in deep." His eyes met mine for a moment, raw with fear, and I saw it then, Emily's shadow over him, her voice in his words. My heart broke for him, but I couldn't bend, not now. I leaned forward, my hands clasped. "I love you, son," I said, the words heavy but true. "But I won't give up my home. Not to her, not to you. You've got one chance to stop this. Walk away, Tom. Please." My voice was calm, but it carried the weight of years, of sacrifices, of nights spent working to give him a future, of promises to Linda I'd sworn to keep. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping, and the papers fell to the table, untouched. "You're making a mistake," he said, but his voice shook, lacking conviction. He moved to the door, his shoulders hunched, and paused, his hand on the knob. For a moment, I thought he'd turn back, say something to bridge the chasm between us. But he didn't. The door closed behind him, soft but final, and the room fell silent, save for the fire's crackle. I stood by the window, watching his figure fade into the dark, the drizzle blurring the world outside. Linda's photo glowed in the firelight, her eyes gentle but unyielding. "I'm ready," I whispered, my breath fogging the glass. The papers lay on the table, a challenge I'd meet on my terms. The night stretched on, but I felt a fire of my own, burning steady, ready for what came next. The office smelled of polished wood and expensive cologne, its glass table gleaming under fluorescent lights. I sat across from Emily and Tom, the air between us taut as a wire. Emily's smile was sharp, her posture rigid, her fingers tapping a pen against a stack of papers. Tom slouched beside her, his eyes fixed on the floor, his hands knotted in his lap. Two lawyers flanked them, their suits crisp, their faces blank but predatory. Outside, Chicago's skyline loomed, its towers gray against a restless sky, the city's hum a distant pulse through the sealed windows. My heart pounded, but I kept my face still, my hands steady on the arms of my chair. "Frank," Emily said, her voice smooth but laced with venom, "let's end this cleanly. Sign the will, transfer the house, and we all walk away." She pushed the papers toward me, their edges aligned with surgical precision. The lead lawyer, a man with a hawkish nose, leaned forward, his voice cold. Refuse, and we'll contest your competency in court.
It's not personal, Mr. Collins. It's practical.
His words were a blade, meant to cut deep, but I felt Linda's presence, her strength in my spine. I glanced at Tom, searching for a flicker of the boy I'd raised. His silence was louder than Emily's threats, a betrayal carved in his refusal to meet my eyes. I remembered her voice in our kitchen, sharp and sure, "You're stronger than you think, Frank." She'd believed in me, even when I doubted myself.
I'd spent years invisible, bending to keep the peace, but not today.
Today, I had a voice. I leaned back, a small smile tugging at my lips. "Funny," I said, my voice calm, almost amused.
"I brought someone too."
Emily's eyes narrowed, her pen freezing mid-tap.
The lawyers exchanged glances, their confidence cracking. I nodded toward the door, and it swung open with a creak that echoed like a gunshot.
Jack strode in, his old briefcase swinging, followed by two witnesses, a retired judge and a notary, their faces stern but resolute. The room stilled, the air heavy with shock. Emily's smile vanished, her knuckles whitening around the pen. "What is this?" she snapped, her voice rising. Tom's head jerked up, his eyes wide.
Caught between fear and confusion.
The lead lawyer stood, his papers scattering. "This is highly irregular, Mr. Collins."
"You can't just."
"I can," I cut in, my voice steady as stone.
"You thought I'd come alone, Emily.
You thought I'd break.
But I've got documents you haven't seen, and people who'll back me."
I didn't elaborate. Jack's plan, a trust to protect the house, was my ace, but I held it close, letting their panic fill the silence. Jack set his briefcase on the table, its thud a punctuation mark, and opened it with a slow, deliberate click. The lawyers scrambled, whispering furiously. Emily's face flushed, her control slipping like sand through her fingers. "You're bluffing," she said, but her voice wavered. Tom said nothing, his shoulders sinking further, a puppet with cut strings. I looked at him, my heart twisting, but I didn't falter. This wasn't just about the house anymore, it was about me, about the man I'd forgotten I could be. Jack leaned toward me, his voice low.
"You've got Frank. Let's wrap this up."
I nodded, standing, my chair scraping softly.
"We're done here," I said, my eyes on Emily. "You want a fight, you'll get one. But it won't be easy."
I walked out, Jack and the witnesses behind me, the lawyers' protests fading into a buzz. Outside, the city air hit me, sharp and clean, and I looked at the sky, its clouds parting to show a sliver of blue. It's not over, I thought, my steps light, my heart steady. The house was safe, for now, but the real fight was just beginning. The park was quiet in the morning light, its paths carpeted with golden leaves that crunched under my boots. I sat on a wooden bench by the pond, the air crisp with the scent of damp earth and grass. Ducks glided across the water, their ripples catching the sun's first rays, each one a small promise of peace. In my hands was a notebook, its pages worn, and a pen that felt heavier than it should. I'd come here to write to Tom, to find the words I hadn't said in the lawyer's office, to offer a bridge across the chasm between us. The victory over Emily was sweet, but it wasn't enough. I needed closure, for him, for me. I opened the notebook, my fingers brushing the paper, and thought of the plan that had saved me. With Jack's help, I transferred the house to a charitable trust, one that supported widows like Linda, women left to rebuild after loss. I kept a small apartment for myself, a modest place with enough to live on, free from the weight of ownership. The house, our home, would live on, its legacy untouchable by Emily's greed. I'd signed the papers in Jack's office, my hand steady, my heart full of Linda's pride. It was her dream, realized at last. I began to write, the pen scratching softly.
"Tom, I don't hold anger in my heart. You're my son, always will be.
I've protected the house, not for me, but for what it means, your mother's love, our family.
The door's open, if you ever want to walk through it."
The words flowed, simple but true, each one a step toward release. I saw Tom as a boy, his crayons scattered across the kitchen table, his drawings of our house pinned to the fridge. I saw his tears when he fell, my arms lifting him up. That boy was still in there, I believed, buried under Emily's shadow.
I offered him a chance, not a demand, and it felt right.
The pond shimmered, a duck quacking softly as it dipped beneath the surface. I thought of Linda, her laughter in this park, her hand in mine as we watched Tom chase pigeons. I'd lived for her, for him, until I'd lost myself.
But now, sitting here, I felt whole, not the man I'd been, but the man I was becoming.
The trust was my shield, but this letter was my freedom, a way to let go without losing love. I wrote the final line, "I'm here, Tom.
Whenever you're ready."
My eyes stung, but I smiled, the weight of years lifting like mist in the sun.
I folded the letter, slipping it into my pocket to mail later.
The bench was cold, but the warmth of the rising sun brushed my face, a gentle touch that felt like Linda's. I stood, my scarf fluttering in the breeze, and walked along the path, the leaves swirling around me. The park stretched wide, its beauty a quiet gift, and I breathed deeply.
My chest light.
I'm home, I thought, not in the house, but in myself, in the life I'd reclaimed.
The future was uncertain, Tom might never answer, might never come, but I was ready to live, for me, for the first time in years.
If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments.
To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.